the Everyday Saint podcast. Today we are at the Ave Maria Grotto, which is in Coleman, Alabama, and we are here with Roger, who's the director at the grotto. So welcome, Roger.
Well, thank you for coming in and thinking of us, and we're glad you're here.
Now let's begin with a special tour of the Ave Maria Grotto.
I point this out because the person who built this was Brother Joseph Zodel. He was one of the first generation monks that came to Alabama. Of course, Ave Maria Grotto was built by Brother Joseph, and of course you're on the campus of St. Bernard Abbey, a Benedictine monastery. So this monastery, I guess indirectly, was founded by a monastery in Austria, and it was monks from Latrobe that came here and founded St. Bernard. Coleman is a German community. It was founded by Colonel Coleman in the 1870s. Of course, they were Germans, so a lot of German Protestants and some Catholics as well. And so that's the reason why there's a basically Austrian monastery was founded here, was to support, to minister to the German Catholics that moved into the North Alabama region, specifically here in Coleman. So that's why there's a monastery. Brother Joseph, as a 14, 15-year-old, was recruited. He's from Bavaria, a little town called Landshut, which is just northeast of Munich, in southeastern Germany, close to the Austrian border. So then, as a 14-year-old, and so he decided to become a monk. So he came here to Coleman, St. Bernard Abbey, right? He was a very slight man. He was only 4'10". He weighed roughly 95 pounds, right? The easiest way to say this is Brother Joseph really wanted to be a priest, but he just could not do so, right? So he remained a lay monk, and he broke his back. He couldn't do much, so they had him shoveling coal, which provided power at that time for the campus in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. So eventually he got to a point where he basically ran the steam plant, right? Just, twisting the valves and shoveling coal and stuff. So that's where he lived. And so he couldn't sleep very well at night. Well, one day, a slick salesman came by, but sold the monastery 500 little statuettes, right, of the Virgin Mary, St. Joseph, etc., right? So they didn't know what to do with it. And so what he did, I could make small little grottos. A cave is always, even pre-Christian times and pagan times, caves were considered to be kind of a nexus for spirituality. So he started making these little caves or grottos and placing the statuettes in it, and then he would bejewel them with whatever he had laying around. You'll see a lot of marbles, broken glass, whatever. Okay. Well, they sold all 500 of them, and he wound up, I guess they kept buying more statuettes because he sold over 5,000. And so this is where the grotto, the concept of the grotto, what you're fixing, came from, was this. Because he had so much time at night, especially couldn't sleep very well, he started to build replicas of buildings in miniature, right, from all over the world, starting primarily with famous buildings, cathedrals, primarily religious or Christian buildings, but it morphed into other things as well. And so he placed these for the monks as a contemplative prayer area, but it got to be a tourist attraction. This is Coleman's oldest tourist attraction by far. And the word got out, so it bothered the monks, right? People, streaming around the campus all the time. And so they moved it to this location, and it was opened in 1934. And this is a rock quarry. And so that's what he did. He didn't want to do it, but he had to go break all these structures down with a wheelbarrow, and then had to prepare the site here. And then he moved what was already built, but he continued building. So once he moved everything here, this park was opened in 1934. It took him 60 years to build all this, so it's his life's work. Built over 130, and he died in 1961. But the humble, a little 4-foot man, by himself, built all this, and he's had more of an influence spiritually, financially, right, on this monastery than any monk, and has had more of an influence probably in Coleman, just by people coming here and being influenced by his work, right, more than anybody else, right? 4'10", 95-pound, broke-back man. He was very shy. Stories of he only wore his overalls all the time, not his habit, and he'd run from it. Now let's walk down and look what Brother Joseph built. This is a 4-acre park. We are on the National Register of Historic Places. This is Bethlehem. I think the grotto, the cave, was built by him. Of course, the statues were not. Those were donated. And then the structure was built over it. And then, of course, he did the Bethlehem and bejeweled the top of it. These stone benches were built by Brother Joseph. Of course, they were placed here later. This was a dirt path, gravel path, with railroad ties as steps. This is the Tower of Thanks, right? Of all the structures here, probably this one and another one are what I would say more artsy, more unique. So it's not patterned after anything in particular. But basically he built, so many people from all over the world would donate things for him to use, right? Whether it's, you'll see a bunch of shells. People would, most of these are from the Gulf Coast, or a lot of the big ones are from South Carolina, I believe. This was a broken altar. Somehow it got fractured or something out of Mobile. But people just would donate things. So this is a thank you to them. This is the shrine to St. Peter. And as you can see, it's just a grotto writ large. So he has an archetype or pattern that he uses, and then most of these this one looks just like one that he would build in miniature, just larger. And again, so this is all out of concrete, lots of marbles. Funny story, Abbot Marcus, the current abbot, he remembers Brother Joseph. In the 50s, he would get in trouble. And so at that time, marbles was a big, game, little children would play. So if he'd get in trouble, his mother would confiscate his marbles and then make him go donate it to Brother Joseph. So it's funny, you'll go around, he'll look at some of these marbles like, I think that's mine. That's my marble, It's hilarious. But yeah, marble, broken glass, you'll see Noxema jars, you'll see toilet float. This is Montserrat, which is a Benedictine monastery. Yeah, everything was either a photo in a magazine or a postcard. Of the 130 some odd structures, he probably physically saw, if we exclude the ones on St. Bernard campus, maybe 3 of the 130 he actually physically saw. When you tour this place, you really kind of get 4 things. One thing is kind of a theme that you'll see is Brother Joseph's life itself, right? So that we have 3 or 4 wayside shrines throughout the park. And this is a shrine you'll see in Europe. I just got back from Greece. You would see these in Greece. They'd be Orthodox and have iconography, Eastern iconography. But this would have been the Catholic version of that, I guess, in Europe, Western Europe. And so this is just a replica of what he would see in Bavaria, right? So you'll see 4 of these in the park. This is Landshut. So this is the buildings he actually saw, right? So this is the Castle Trials in Landshut, which is northeast of Munich. So it's a Bavarian town, hometown, right? And so this structure, building, St. Martin's, that tower is the tallest brick spire in Europe. There's the Statue of Liberty. I think I mentioned that when he came through Ellis Island, became a U.S. citizen. None of these structures were actually painted to begin with. And then the monks allowed someone to come in like in the late 60s, early 70s and paint it. And they painted them all wrong colors. This is the Red Cross Tower. God bless America. Here's St. Kateri. We had a whimsical side as well, right? I have Temple of the Fairies and Hansel and Gretel. We would put little organs down here, right? And you can just look at all the stuff he would use, a broken server tray, see all this kind of unique stuff. This is St. Bernard campus with the church as it exists now. Actually, I don't think he built this one. We had another, Leo Schweiger. He wasn't a monk. He was a German local, Schweiger, right? And so he was the caretaker here from like 63 to 2010. You can tell this is built in the 50s. It has that Frank Lloyd flat roof. If you're familiar with Frank Lloyd, right, American architect, stone and wood, the architecture of the church was heavily influenced by him, in my opinion. And some of this is slag from Birmingham. There's a steel industry developed in Birmingham in the Reconstruction era after Civil War. A lot of this would be, byproducts that he would get from Birmingham. This is the Archdiocese Church in Mobile. Also, I said themes, right? So you have the theme of his life. You also have the theme of Catholicism as it expanded into the New World, right? So you'll see a lot of Spanish missions right in this area, right? Mainly in California, New Mexico, Texas area. Kind of this section, and then the one next to it. And then every once in a while, he'll throw in something for Bavaria, like this up here. And he also has a little Bavarian town sitting right above some Spanish missions. So I say theme, but it was kind of a pattern that he could deviate from. It originally started for that and the monks, but then it became a tourist attraction. Right. Again, this is what we call the Spanish section, right? See the Alamo. Funny thing, most people don't realize is that I would say 90 to 95% of our visitors are not Catholic. Initially, it was mainly Protestants, but now I think we see more non-affiliated that come through that are looking at the art. I view this as kind of a evangelical type of situation where the Catholic Church is, spreading some spiritual seeds to people, right? They come here and, the world's, has been pretty nasty. It's been nasty forever. Right. But, politically, especially culturally, it's just a war zone, and people can come here and experience peace of what he did, but also God's creation as well, right? So you kind of get a true sense of humility and a true sense of peace here. His favorite, this is in France, so we have the Spanish section, and something from France. But this is the Carmel of Lisieux. This is Saint Therese. This was her convent. They were the same age. It was she's the little flower, so she's the saint of the everyday things, which is like him. So when he passed away, he had a copy of her autobiography in the Bible, and that was it. This is Lisieux, Saint Therese. So he built a shrine. It's out of marble. Look at that cat. Looks like a Godzilla cat. This is the Italian section. So these are just various, primarily in Rome. Pantheon here, Colosseum. There's a Leaning Tower of Pisa's up there. We have today close to 40,000 that come see us every year. People come here because they want to escape. We have a lot of non-affiliated now. Mm-hmm. Tons of people. I've had people come in, this is their first experience of Christianity ever, really? Right? They don't even know what's going on. And so really it's in some way, it's a passive evangelicalism, if that makes sense, because you have an influence on these people that come here. There's St. Paul's outside the wall up there. That's just a certain facade. It's a complex. So if you do Google, believe me, I know, because I've been trying to find the proper colors, but it's such a huge complex. This is just one side of it. And so the more famous side, I think, is a little newer. It has a courtyard in front of it, has kind of a Byzantine look to it, Roman Byzantine look to it. So you think, he just misidentified it, but actually didn't. It was, he probably had a postcard of a certain area of it, and so that's what he replicated. I don't think this is an actual existent church. If you notice, I can't find it anywhere, and it's not in any of our records. It was built in 1918, right? But if you notice, it's really bejeweled. So I'm thinking he just built this kind of like one of the grottos where he would just, form it, and then he moved it down here. But everything else, because I've asked every monk, and none of them know what it is. This is like a bejeweled church that he just he came up with, right? And then he placed it there. But everything else, I've been able to identify. Of course, this is the statue I was telling you about of Brother Joe, there with the church in Landshut. This is the main grotto itself. Madonna and Child. And on the left is Saint Benedict. On the right is Saint Scholastica, his sister, right, who founded Benedictine convents. And there actually is a Benedictine convent here, not too far, Sacred Heart, which is basically across the street. You notice most of these stalactites are cement, but every so often you'll especially the ones on the bottom here, are out of marble. And then if you look closely, a lot of times you'll find shards. Is not cement, that's marble. And that was just a rock it looked like he used there for that stalactite, if you look through it. So we have four main sections down here. We have the Spanish section, we have the Roman section, and then on this side of the main grotto, you'll have the Holy Land section, right? And you'll have a sign up here, you'll see it's scenes from the Holy Land, right? And so these are all structures that are in the Holy Land. Most in Jerusalem, but really kind of all over ancient Israel. So you have the Second Temple here, right? Herod's Gate. And then we do have, flowing again, it's a little waterfall that comes down through here, and then water will come out this little pipe right here, flow into this pool, then to here. He built, a lot of this is built on rubble, just whatever he had. And this is Little Jerusalem, the fourth section down here. These were the original structures, the oldest. These are all about 120 years old. So you can see they're smaller and not as sophisticated. Yeah, this was his first, and it was elsewhere. So all these were moved here, and then some of the structures you see in the main area were moved here as well, but some he continued to build on, right? Because it was opened in 34, but the last structure he built was 1958, so he continued to build down here for about another 25 years.
Now that we've seen the 4 main sections with themes, we're going to continue on the tour to see other structures that Brother Joseph built in honor of our faith.
Noah's Ark, Tower of Babel, right, Daniel's tomb. This is Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Another wayside shrine. If you notice, it's a pyramid. There's another pyramid behind it that we found in the woods. So I think his original idea was to have the pyramids of Giza. I think Leo Schwager built these, the lizard condo, and I think he did the Great Wall of China. It just seems odd to me that, well, there's the Great Wall. Crucifixion Tower. Is Ecce Homo. I remember at the very beginning when I showed you the Tower of Thanks, so there were 2 structures that are a little more artsy. This is the other one. This is basically dedicated to the Benedictine order. See the Benedictine cross with peace and ora, labora, pray and work, and just all sorts of shells. This is Fatima. It has actually been restored. That's Fatima, and of course that's the apparition of Fatima. What was it, 1917, 1918 there. Another wayside shrine, Devalde Capella, chapel in the woods. This was the last structure that he built, which is Lourdes. I had someone point out it's on the wrong side. Like, well, yes, but that's the best you could do. This is the grotto itself at Lourdes. This is the Garden of Gethsemane, agony in the garden. These are, the crosses represent students that died in World War II in Korea. There were some that were added for Vietnam, which were added later because he passed away in '61. This structure and the next 3 were built by Leo Schwager. He was a caretaker here, I think I mentioned. Possibly Montserrat, and then the Abbey Church, I think, were actually built by him. This was the original gift shop and entrance building to the grotto. Underneath is a workshop that he used, which we still use today. And even there's shells, marbles, stuff that he collected still in there. That's Leo. This was the original entrance to the grotto, right? Opened in 1934, so the gift shop entrance would be here, right? And you just come down to the park and then do a circle. Then it was moved, the gift shop was built over here, then it's been expanded twice. Right. Last expansion, I think, was about 20 years ago. But there's been a change over the past 20, 30 years where a lot of, Protestant buses would come through, and that's slowed way down. Right. And then it's increased with families traveling, families in the area looking for something to do on a Saturday afternoon. Coleman, with its growth over the past 20 years, is stuff to do here. And that is the park, guys.